Can we truly trust scientific studies on deer behavior if the very act of studying them changes their natural behavior? Is it even possible? The goal of this video is to explore whether the scientific studies that are being done on deer behavior with the use of collars and/or in captivity accurately reflect the natural behavior of the deer. There's a lot of videos floating around on the internet right now from a study that was recently conducted by a university in Mississippi. In fact, a friend of mine sent me a video that's about an hour and a half long. Guys, I'm not going to link that video down below because it was painful to watch. I've been bow hunting for roughly 40 years. I've also raised animals, from dogs to horses to turkeys to quail. The one thing that I can tell you from years of hunting deer truly rely on their instinct. They also rely on environmental cues, which helps them know where to move to find food. How many of you have ever raised a puppy or a cat? Take your pick, a home pet. You brought it home, it's really small, and what's it trying to do? It's trying to stay warm, it doesn't want to go hungry, and it just is looking for a little bit of comfort because it's been taken out of its environment, i.e. its mother and litter mates. What's one of the first things that we do as pet owners? By golly, we need to put a collar on them, and then we need to put their name on them, so in case it gets lost, people can call us and say, hey, we got your puppy over here. What is one of the things that I know, because it's cute and it's comical, but what happens when you put that collar on your cat or your dog? Immediately, they start scratching at it, they don't like it, they're trying to get it off. I mean, they'll use both legs trying to get it off because it's not natural to them. So I want you to think about that while we're continuing this discussion on the scientific studies of deer behavior. Do you think putting a collar on a deer would change its natural behavior? I think we needed to go into a little bit of a deeper dive on this one. How did you get the collar on the deer? Is the deer tame enough that you can walk up and just put it on it? I want to give you an example of deer behavior on what I'd call a semi-tame deer. We recently posted a video this past fall on the perfect saddle. If you guys are saddle hunters, I'd encourage you to go over and look at it because I discuss a lot of the things that in my mind would be the best saddle to hunt out of. In that video, you can look in the background the entire time I'm talking, there's a deer walking around. She also has a baby buck with her. The baby buck, it takes almost 8 minutes before the baby buck appears on camera. He's back there in the background. He's not as trusting as his mother. We've named that deer Precious. My next door neighbor who lives next door to me, he said, I was asking him about Precious. I said, hey, have you seen that doe that hangs out? And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, I got a buddy that lives over half a mile that way, and that's actually his pet deer. He's raised it from a bottle. I don't know if that's true or not, guys, but what I'm trying to tell you is the natural behavior of deer and deer movement, I think, has a lot to do with how they're raised. And I believe a deer that's raised in the wild is going to react differently than one that's somewhat contained in a controlled environment. If it's somewhat contained in a controlled environment, you know that they're having to feed it, water it, take care of it. Just like Precious. She's in the video. She's eating right behind me the whole time that we're doing the video. Now then, her baby buck is wilder than she is because it hasn't been handled by humans. He's very hesitant to come up and even get within camera range. Now let's take that a step further. And I want you to think about the collars while we're talking about this. And this topic actually, it hit me this morning. It's 3 o'clock in the morning right now. We've got a major cold front moving in and I'm fixing to go hunt because that's what hunters do. But I was watching a TikTok video and you could tell that one of the scientists that have done this study, and I think their whole goal was to debunk all the little theories out there that hunters use, whether it be the moon phase, cold front, weather, and that hour and a half long video that I told you I'm not going to bore you with because it's painful to watch. At the end of the video, the only thing they were able to determine 100% is during the rut that bucks move more than they do the rest of the year. Guys, I've been hunting for 40 years. I don't have a master's degree in wildlife biology. I could have told you that. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I want you to think about this, because this is what happened in the video that I just recently watched. And you can tell this young wildlife biologist, and I promise you my daughters are older than this young man, and it has nothing to do with his study, because I think he's doing the best he can. But he was talking about these deer that they've been collared in Mississippi. They took them to Oklahoma. Okay, work with me here for just a second. They took these collared deer from Mississippi to Oklahoma, and they put them in a public hunting area. This was a controlled hunt in the state of Oklahoma. All the hunters that were on most controlled hunts, especially in Oklahoma, you have to go to the briefing. It's a safety briefing before you, and if you miss the safety briefing, you're done. You're not going to get to hunt. But the way he explained it in the video is it was 10,000 acres, and they divided it up in thirds. And they put 2/3 of the hunters in one area, the other third of the hunters in one area, and no hunters in the other area. And they were studying the natural behavior of these deer. My question is, and think about this, if somebody grabbed you, slammed a collar on you, took you in a van, a dark van, out in the woods, and dumped you off, is that going to be a realistic, natural study of your behavior? And I know that I'm actually placing some human traits on wildlife, but my point is this: if we know that you have a brand new puppy and you put a collar on it and it behaves differently, and I've got proof that a somewhat tame wild deer, you can go back and watch my video, who's not afraid of people, will come up and eat while I'm making a video for you guys because she's not scared of people, is her behavior normal deer behavior? Deer rely on their instincts, especially a wild deer, and if you don't think bucks, mature bucks, act differently than does, you haven't been hunting long enough, because a mature buck is not going to be on those same trails that all the does are going down. He may cross those trails trying to find does during the rut, but he typically avoids all those areas because he's a mature buck. He's probably been shot at several times. So my point is this: I believe scientific studies are vital and they help us in a lot of ways, but they're not perfect. Whether it's a collar, whether it's in captivity, or even our own beliefs, many factors can shape how we interpret this behavior. Here's just some interesting facts if you just Google deer behavior. And I'm going to read them off to you, that way I don't get them wrong. Wild deer have highly sensitive instincts, often influenced by subtle environmental cues like wind direction or seasonal changes. If you guys have hunted for any amount of time, you know that the bucks will move differently with different winds. Their bedding's different because of the different winds. So I mean, they're using the environmental changes, just something as subtle as the wind changing. Studies suggest that animals with collars may exhibit increased stress and or altered movement patterns due to awareness of the foreign object. That's exactly what I was saying about the puppy. You put a collar on a puppy, it's going to act different. It's going to behave different. Now factor in the fact that you've trailered them from Mississippi to Oklahoma. Guys, I can't tell you that they trailered them. I'm just telling you that he said, I'm talking about this young man, he said they took them to Oklahoma. So I would assume they trailered them. And this is from Google as well. A study on relocated deer found their initial movements were erratic, highly cautious, with collared individuals showing even more hesitation. So if they're doing a study, and these are known facts that you can just pull up on Google, if they're doing a study to relate the environmental changes, and they were specifically talking about the moon phases and buck movement, and now they've even included weathered patterns on buck movement, but it's a known fact that animals that are collared react differently. And think about this, let's just say somebody grabbed you and took you and threw you off in a jungle somewhere. Are you going to run around like crazy, or are you going to try to find a safe place to hide and maybe try to find a safe place for shelter? I'm not saying that deer act anything like us, but what I'm saying is deer's normal instincts are to survive, because everything out in the woods is trying to eat them, whether it be a hunter, a wolf, a coyote. They react differently. And I promise you, the little doe that's in my backyard, she's not worried about any of that because she's sleeping in people's backyards. She reacts differently than what I would consider a wild deer. So just to summarize, I gotta say this. I'm not a graduate from Ole Miss. I'm not a graduate from Ole Miss, so if you guys can catch the pun there, then good on you, high five. But what I'm trying to say is, I believe there's some placebo effects to hunters, the way we hunt. And if you believe in the moon phase, or you believe in the weather changes, keep doing what you're doing. Because I don't believe that a collared deer is going to react 100% naturally the same way that a wild deer would. And I'm going to use the word wild deer because if you've got a collar on a deer, it's been handled by somebody at some point. And there's no way to get a collar on a deer without it being handled, is bottom line. And is that deer going to react differently than a true wild deer? You guys comment down below, what do you think? Have you seen deer behavior be differently? Let's just use your local zoo, for example. Do the deer at the local zoo in captivity act differently than the deer in the wild? Have you seen a difference in the way that these deer in captivity behave versus wild deer? Share your experiences and comments down below. And as we close this video out, if you found any of this interesting, consider giving it a like. I want to hear from you. This is not our typical video format, and if I can figure out how to make this a podcast and it not cost me an arm and a leg, I'll turn it into a podcast. I just think these are some points that we need to factor in, especially if your buddy sent you that hour-and-a-half long video. Basically, in my mind, he's trying to tell me, hey, you know all that stuff you believe in that you hunt around ain't true. Okay. That's fine. You don't have to believe, and I won't share any more information with you. It's that simple. But comment down below, let us know what you think. Do any of these things, should they be factored in, and how much should you change the way you hunt based off of a collared deer study? We'd love to hear from you. Comment down below. I hope you all have a blessed week. Let me know, is it going to affect the way you hunt? Number one, don't let them get you down. Keep doing what you do. Believe in yourself. Believe in the evidence that you've seen while you're out in the woods. Continue to do what you're doing. And again, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a cold front moving in. I'm going hunting. Let me know your thoughts. I hope you all have a blessed week. Let's get outside, make something happen.